booties for black girl nerds.
So thanks so much for taking the time to speak to Black Girl Nerds. I really truly appreciate it. We love you. We always love seeing you in all of the films and projects that you're on. And we love Brooklyn.
Thank you. I do too.
I had the pleasure of seeing this at Sundance, and once again, you and Andre and Nicole, and a whole host of great
Yes.
ensemble cast members, Roy, Cassandra. You guys hit it out of the ballpark with this incredible film, and you've played a wide range of roles across film and television. What did you want to explore differently with this performance?
I think it's wild. I jumped in, I was probably the last person cast. The actress they had originally cast had a scheduling conflict, blessed scheduling conflicts. And so I think, what was exciting for me is on the page, ordinarily, Bahari and I would have played the opposite role, right? Like I've played a
Ah,
ton of free Black women, very free willing. Um,
yes.
and she's played a lot. We were joking about how, she was like fresh out of school playing mothers. Like, she's been playing mothers since she was 22.
hmm
So I think it was just kind of an opportunity for both of us to do something that we haven't done yet, to explore terrain that we haven't really explored. For me, it felt a little bit like playing Nicole. This entire trajectory, this like little moment I'm in, just feels like I'm like playing women. I had a
Yeah.
brief ingenue phase, but I've always been. I was like 12 and a grown up. I was one of those kids.
hmm
So it's fun to play the grown up in the room.
Yeah. You've had this beautiful privilege of playing these multifaceted, multi-layered women throughout your career. What
Yeah.
about your character in Love Brooklyn spoke to you at a personal level?
Part of it was uh, a parallel perspective that Rachel and I share, which is that ultimately life is absurd. Life is ridiculous. Like, what are we doing? And especially this idea of moving through something really difficult and kind of unfathomable, even, and coming on the other side of it. Well, okay, if my greatest fear happened, if the worst thing possible in the world happened, well, I still have to live. Like, what now? You know? And so
Mhm.
there's this kind of um an irony and effervescence, of like almost a freedom that she lives by. Um, and I just, I think we don't have a lot of depictions of grief that feel the way that this one felt to me. That feel how grief feels to me, DeWanda me,
Mm.
which is not always this like really weighted, heavy, mucky, impossible thing. It's like, no, you kind of carry on with the business of living and you figure out what you're doing moment by moment. And then every once in a while, you're like, what am I doing? What am I actually doing?
You've been a part of projects that broaden how Black women are represented on screen. What does Love Brooklyn help add to that cultural landscape?
Part of it for me is sometimes it's vocational,
Mm.
seeing Black women in spaces that we haven't witnessed them in. Sometimes it's so funny. I've been pushing up against the notion of her being no nonsense, because she's actually like, when you have that beat, that moment when she's asking about Nicole's character, Bahari's character, and Casey, and she's just going like, well, why aren't y'all together? Like, why don't she means it. She wholeheartedly is like, well, that seems like a good thing. Like, why aren't you exploring that? And so she's not really possessive. She's not a possessed person. It's just like there's elements of how grown up all of these characters are, how like extremely mature, how clear their communication is. And it really turned me on, as a storyteller to see that, to see us like actually saying what needs to be said. And also, I love a coming of age later story because you don't
Yes.
ever really figure it out. You just don't. You just don't. That's the whole like publicity, PR of life, like the notion of even coming out with a memoir. Like, I figured it out. No, you haven't. No, you
We
haven't.
have it.
You
Yeah,
need to
we're
you're gonna need to write 8 memoirs, okay?
it's like they say that, once you go to high school, when you're in high school and you graduate and you go to college, oh, you figured, no, we're still figuring it out in our 40s.
Correct.
And even afterwards, we're still figuring it out. So that's
Yes.
what's refreshing about this story. It's like, it's a journey. It's a
Yeah,
journey.
absolutely.
Um, do you still feel that love stories led by Black women are finally getting the recognition that they deserve, or is there still a long way to go?
I think there's a long way to go. I
Hmm.
think there's a long way to go. I mean, there's just so much. It's like that. It's part of the reason why I'm so thankful for Black Girl Nerds and for other publications that are really stomping the ground for Black women is because it needs support on all sides. Like there's a reason I always joke about it. There's like if you look at a Black woman in Hollywood's team, we all have like 12 to 15 agents because that's how much support we need. You know what I mean? And telling those stories, telling love stories, trying to like pitch them, like every single step is hard. Every single step is hard. And, you know, there have been multiple times of roles that I've played where the conversation, unbeknownst to me, like I find out later, thankfully, because I do like to live my life being like, la la la. To a certain extent, like there's a healthy level of delusion that I have to live in. But, I'll find out after the fact that they were like, oh, well, could she be this? Could she be, like not a Black woman? Time and time again, it happens a lot. So
Wow.
very challenging.
Wow. And you're right. It does take a village to just even do the press rollout for promoting this movie. There's a
Yeah.
lot of moving parts to that. So you're absolutely right. You've built a reputation for choosing roles with intention. How did Love Brooklyn align your larger vision for your career?
I mean, part of it was working with, Andre and I shared the stage together. He was in grad when I was in undergrad, and we were both up on that stage. My dad would still ask about him and be like, how's that boy who was on? I'm like, he's doing great, Dad. So part of it was just, and the first time I met Nicole was at an audition. We both auditioned for Katori Hall's Mountaintop on Broadway, you
Mhm.
know? So I've just known them and been fans and like in their lives for many, many years. And Rachel and I first met in 2006. So and I can go on and on like that. Every single, not just those two, not just those three, but every single member of this cast, we all have like these sliding door stories and we're really ravenous to work together. So that's probably first and foremost, like at the top of my list was, who you want to be in the sandbox with.
Mm,
And for my money, for our generation, Nicole, Andre, Cassandra, like these are some of the coldest actors.
they are. They are. You're
Truly
working
like
with some heavy
old
hitters.
school craftsmen, like
Yeah.
nerdy actors.
Indeed, this and you guys work so well together on screen. It's palpable seeing
Thank you.
your performances on screen. You've balanced big studio projects with intimate indie ones. What do you get creatively from indies that you don't get from blockbusters?
Just a little more, like a lot of autonomy. Um, I mean, to be fair, I've been very fortunate in the blockbuster space too, to just kind of like form characters from scratch and not really have to fit into a mold. So I have been very fortunate, but I'm like indie born and raised in many respects. Like, there's the first portion of my resume is just all shorts. Like there was one point where Alana was like, DeWanda, you cannot do any more shorts. Okay, that's enough short. But I just really enjoy the process of digging in. It's more likely if you're working on an indie, that you have a director who's gonna like send you some books to read.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, like it happens with those other kind of projects, but it's like it's very rare that there's going to be the level of a syllabus. Like my I'm getting really granular, but my like bio for this character was such a co-construction, and Rachel was just such a delight to work with because we have overlapping and very compatible working styles, and I find that more frequently in indie film.
Oh, that's refreshing. That's good. That's awesome. I know
Yeah.
you've got to wrap soon, so I want to ask this last question. I know you've got a couple of projects coming up. I looked up your IMDb. And are you able to talk about them? Because I saw you've got Killing Faith and then Killer Bee.
I know a lot of killing. It's very, we
Yeah,
might have
what's
to
going
change
on
these
with that?
titles. It's a little intense. Sign of the times. Um, really dark.
Right?
Yeah, Killing Faith is coming out. Another indie. It's like a month after. Same thing, like a genre that I haven't played in nearly enough. Like I was in The Harder They Fall, just the opening scene.
Yes.
So it was a chance to put on that hat and get on that horse and ride around with Guy Pearce.
Love it.
Really good time, really wild. It's a ride. It's one of those like journey films where you're just coming across all these same thing, like extraordinary actors like giving really wild performances. And then Killer Bee, we're still writing it. We're still constructing it from scratch. David Crowns and I known for quite a long time, and that's an opportunity to. I'm always interested. And I know everyone's like, "Ooh, Storm, DeWanda," but I'm always interested in constructing new characters and creating new icons.
We are still rooting for you for Storm. You're at the top of the list. So,
Wow.
I'm ready to write up that article if the Deadline or Variety puts out that press release. Wanda, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to Black Girl Nerds. We always love chatting with you and sharing your projects and promoting your work. You're always a delight to
It
talk to.
is reciprocal. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to Black Girl Nerds. I absolutely adored and loved this film at Sundance. And I just love movies that are love letters to cities, and
Mm.
Brooklyn being one of them. I lived in New York for a short bit, and Brooklyn is such a lovely city to see on screen. And often, Brooklyn is portrayed in film, I think, and feel free to agree or disagree, as a certain stereotype. How did you want to reframe or challenge Brooklyn in a way that is usually represented on screen?
I think that was kind of probably just like a happy accident because living in Brooklyn, my family still lives in Fort Greene.
Mm,
I was shooting the Brooklyn that I know. And my family and I would go to Brooklyn every Sunday growing up for church. That's where we would land. My parents are from Guyana, and there was a West Indian Caribbean community in Bed-Stuy that we would be a part of at church every Sunday growing up. And so it was like my access to Black people, to Black culture as a kid living on Long Island. So I don't think I was approaching it from like a tourist from a distance. And
mhm.
so I think that like those cinematic iconic places that you normally see in movies, I didn't think to shoot in or at. Yeah, I think our point was just to show how much has changed, and also on the flip side, how much we're still there. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it was important to feature locations that spoke to that.
That's awesome. The film also it touches on themes of love, community, and belonging. How did you weave into those elements into the narrative without making it feel overly sentimental?
Thank you for that. Um, our approach was really just to like make it as grounded and natural as possible.
Mhm.
I feel like that's my aesthetic holistically as an artist. I wanted people to feel like they were spending time with these people. Um, it was about like being reserved with our camera, letting it sit in moments, letting the audience be flies on the wall. Um, so you felt like you were overhearing a conversation rather than being told one.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think like sort of pulling out the humanity of each character, not allowing anyone to be a villain. Um, uh, Sort of naturally created the romance in our film.
I love that. As a writer director, how do you balance staying true to your vision while also allowing your cast the freedom to bring in like their own interpretations?
Yeah, I think it's so important, especially as a director, to be a smart collaborator.
Mhm.
Not having a million cooks in the kitchen, but being the chef that, listens so that you're not just having one track. And I think it's important to like have your North Stars. Um,
Yes.
and there were a few that I had to stick to. And I think that being very strict about that allowed me the breadth of allowing other ideas in and having them naturally collaborate with mine.
Andre Holland is also a producer on this film. Were you guys working together, collaborating together creatively, or did you kind of stick to your vision with the script? Was that changed organically throughout production, or was it pretty succinct?
Parts changed throughout production in terms of like improv. We wanted Roger and Casey especially to feel as lived in as the relationship on the page is.
Mhm.
Um, and as a producer, yeah, I mean, I think that like from like Andre having connections in Brooklyn and getting us locations because he knew several people who were taking his calls and saying yes, to, some casting decisions that were helpful with him because he could call Cassandra and, get her to be a part of this, for example. Um, yeah, it was a huge collaboration.
Independent filmmaking, it comes with so many unique challenges. What was the biggest hurdle that you face in getting Love Brooklyn made, and how did you overcome that?
Um, mm, uh, let me pick one. Um,
If there's
I think,
multiple, you
yeah, I
feel free to
think like
share.
t like talking like creatively, we made a movie set in the summer and it rained a lot. And
Mm.
so I had this like my cinematographer, my brilliant cinematographer, Martine and I talked about light so much and how much I wanted the skin of our characters to be lit well. And so we did some camera tests with natural lighting, because we would have these like bright sunny days in pre-production. And a lot of those park days were overcast days. And I think that the way that we sort of organically and artistically overcame that hurdle was to just sort of embrace the moodiness and and not allow our skin to be shot in a way that sort of went against our objective. And it was challenging, but I think, I really think he really did it. I feel like the lighting is one of the best parts of our film. It's inviting and warm and creates the feeling of solace that I was hoping our audience would leave with.
That's exactly the word you use, warm. That's what I felt when I watched the film. It had this just warm and inviting as well, inviting feeling to it. So I really love the cinematography in the
Thank
movie as
you.
well. Yeah. Were there any particular films or songs or even works of art that helped influence or inform your approach to Love Brooklyn's tone or style?
Yes. So I created a playlist that I sent to our editor, Sean Paper, who was cutting the movie together as we were shooting. I was listening to a lot of Bach and a lot of jazz and a lot of cello and a mix of just sort of calm and mellow music. I really wanted to have restraint and to allow breath within our piece. And I think defining the musicality was really important to maintain that.
That's awesome. My last question for you is how do you want this film to expand or even challenge the way that audiences think about contemporary Black love on screen?
I think the thing with Love Brooklyn is that it feels familiar, but it's also something that audiences have never seen before.
Exactly.
And so I hope that that is the takeaway, which I think it will be. And I think I hope it will allow for other storytellers that want to tell different versions of us on screen, the allowance to do that. We're not a monolith. And I think that outside of it being, I feel like we're in a moment though where it's not just like a charitable, nice thing to do to have inclusion and diversity in our storytelling. I think that
Yeah.
it's
Not anymore with the
obvious.
rollbacks.
Yeah, I feel like it's obvious now how much it's needed and how cool
Yeah.
it is and how sort of like um, there's an untapped space and there's just so much out there to watch now that like it takes so long to find something good because there's just like icons upon icons upon icons. And I just hope that this is an invitation for fresh and new and people can stop being so afraid of it because how cool is it that like it's sort of been staring us in the face the whole time?
Exactly. And it's just so refreshing to see some original stories out now in this culture of reboots and requels and remakes. It's good to see some new, unique stories out there. And Love Brooklyn definitely delivers that. So, Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to Black Girl Nerds. I really enjoyed this at Sundance. I loved every bit of it. And I can't wait for everybody else to be able to experience what I got to experience back in January.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You take care.
Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds.